Algebra 1 students. This is part 1 of a video set going over what to do with lesson 14. Okay, so as you know, I like to set the stage by talking about what you have been doing and how that connects to what you're going to do today. So, for the past couple of weeks now, you have been solving equations in two variables and relating that information to a graph and to a table of values. And then on top of rearranging those equations in order to answer a different question, okay, we then moved to, in the middle of last week, we moved to solve a system of linear equations. That is, two equations that model two different aspects of the same situation. Okay, for example, the number of tickets for a student play to the cost of an adult and a student ticket. Okay, they're both talking about the play. They're both talking about tickets for the play, but they're talking about that situation in two different ways. One way is to talk about the number of tickets, and the other aspect is how much each ticket costs. Okay, so the amount of money that they take in from selling these tickets. And to finish, first you learned to graph two equations, and you learned that place where the two lines cross is a point that makes both equations true. And that's how you can solve a system. That's one way. Then you learned how to use the concept of rearranging one of the equations to substitute for one of the variables. Now, the purpose of this, young people, is that we're not going to graph now. Okay, when you graph, you just graph the two equations and then you look and see if they cross, and that point where they cross is the solution. But we can't always graph. All right? Sometimes we have to use algebra. And the two ways that we can use algebra is the concept of substitution, which we learned in lesson 13, and then the concept of elimination, which we're going to enter today. Okay, we're going to scratch the surface, dip our toes in the water, whatever, way you want to look at it. Okay, so the goal for this lesson is let's investigate how adding or subtracting equations can help us solve systems. Okay, so you should know what a system is. Two related equations talking about the same situation from two different vantage points. Okay, and we're going to add them together. So how are we allowed to do that? Well, let's start with the warm-up. Now, I personally love these. Okay, so on the right screen, I've got the digital task statements. And on the left, I've got the actual lesson. Okay? So they're asking you, what do you notice and what do you wonder about this situation? So on the student task statements, you have two places that you can fill this out. Okay? Here you have, this is a mobile. These are called mobile puzzles, and they are in balance. Okay? That means that these two circles equal a blue square, and that a circle and a green triangle equal a pentagon. Okay? So over here, look at this. Here we have 3 red dots and a green triangle and a blue square and a yellow pentagon. So what do you think they did with these two to get this one? Okay, so write down, what do you notice about it? And what questions might you have as to what it means? And so then you guys will share what you notice and wonder with each other. And what I'm hoping that you notice is that they added these together. Okay? And how can they do that? I think that's what we're going to investigate in the next activity. So, here you have Diego is solving the system of equations. Okay? So what did Diego do? Look what he did. What does it look like he did? I invite you to stop the video and think about that for a minute. And then when you're ready, look at this. You have a question in the student task statements where you get a chance to write that down, type that down. Okay? And then once he got what y was, he was able to solve for x. So write down what you think he did. It seems obvious what he did to me. Okay? He added the two equations together. Okay? And you're going to test his answer and see if it came out right. And young people, you should be able to do this by now. Okay? You should be able to take the x and substitute it in for x, and the y and substitute it in for one of the y's, and see if it makes first one equation true, and then do the same thing, put x equals 1 in for x, and y equals 2 in for y, and see if you get something that is equal. Okay? Alrighty. So now they're going to give you another two sets of systems. And they're going to ask you, hey, can you do what Diego did for this system up here? Okay. And can you do what Diego did to solve B? Okay. So I invite you to actually try this out, okay? So I would like you to pause the video and I would like you to go ahead and try. I would like you to add this equation together and see if there's a way that you can solve for one of the variables. And then I would like you to add these two equations together for B. And I would like you to investigate. Does it do the same thing? Does it work the same way? Do you only end up with one variable that you can solve for? Or do you actually end up with two variables still when you get done? And then if you go on to the next we're not ready for the next okay, young people. So before you move on to the next activity, you need, in order to answer this question, this last question here, before you go on to 14.3, okay, before you go there, you need to look at this so that you can answer this, okay? And you need to do it. You need to think about why is it that you can add 2x plus y equals 4 and x minus y equals 11. Why does adding the equations together in this instance work, but it doesn't work for these two? Okay? And you have to try it, like I said earlier, before you can actually come to that conclusion. And how is adding the two equations here like and unlike combining the shapes in the two hanger diagrams earlier? How is this like and unlike combining the shapes in the two hanger diagrams the same? And how is it different? Okay? Alrighty. And then one last thing is that here is a little piece of vocabulary that they're going to introduce. And then I'm going to close this video and we'll start thinking about the next video. Okay? So elimination is a method of solving a system of two equations in two variables where you add or subtract a multiple of one equation to another to get an equation with only one of the variables. Okay, thus eliminating the other variable for a moment. Okay, all right, see you guys. Thank you for listening and see you in the next video.